Good evening, fellow ghouls and specters alike. It's your ghost host with the most, Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5, here to engage in some haunted holiday hijinks by trudging through the catacombs and dusting off the cobwebs as we recount our spooky selection of Halloween classics.
So light the jack-o'-lantern, suit up, and grab the candy dish. As we revive and recount tonight's spooky selection, Ghostbusters. We're actually talking about the 2016 version. No, we're not. 1984. Dragon, this is the debate that I just want to start off with this, just kind of like a fun little like inside baseball thing. I had a debate going long and hard in my head about whether or not to include the 1984 in the episode or not. Like in the title of this video.
Oh yeah, I get
it. Because like I ultimately did, but by the same token, Dragon, it pains me to do it. It does. Because it acknowledges that the 2016 version exists. But by the same token, I don't want people thinking we're talking about the 2016 version. So, you know. Oh boy. So, Dragon, this one's been a long time coming.
That it has, yes.
Would you like to set the stage for the good folks at home about my, thing with this movie?
Well, I mean, I don't want to do all the work for you. Maybe you should.
No, come on. I want to hear you describe it, Dragon, by all means.
All right. I guess.
I want to hear you throw me under the bus.
All right, fine. So, folks, for years now, and the years that we've been doing this, I can't tell you how many times. I don't know how often. I want to say, I don't know if it was from the beginning or because I know Abbott Costello, me, Frankston was definitely. I forget if that was. The first year we just did 5 because we were just trying to get something, and then after that we tried doing the 13 and everything. And basically, in doing the 13, I want to say whatever the first finale was. I don't know if it was the very first or what. One of the years I finally got it in, we did Abbott Costello Meet Frankenstein. I think we did probably like Sleepy Hollow before that, and maybe something else before that. Point being, once we finally did that, the next thing on the docket was let's do Ghostbusters. Or at some point, I tried to work in Ghostbusters there because, what you need the feel good movie to watch around Halloween, and you know what. Ghostbusters, why not? So I tell Tiki this, hey Tiki, let's do the finale on Ghostbusters. And well, Tiki was hesitant for 2 reasons.
Oh God. Okay.
Reason number one was that he was not an avid Ghostbusters fan. In that, basically he had, from what he told me, he had seen it once and never really gone back to it. Is that correct? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, I've seen it a couple times, but it's just one of those movies I never really grew up with, so I don't have a big attachment towards it.
The point is, there's a lot of fear for lack of nostalgia on his part there.
Yeah.
And secondly, usually I want to say this is the year I proposed it. I don't know if only because obviously
it was definitely the year you first proposed it, my friend.
So I guess it'd be going back at least 3 years then, probably
2016. Yeah.
Might be around 2016. Obviously, there was another Ghostbusters film in 2016.
Nope, not touching Ghostbusters with a 10-foot pole. Nope.
Of course, I was of the mindset of, you know what? While people are kind of cursing the darkness, let's light let's praise the light of '84. And he's like, no, I don't want to take the chance of hate mail and all the.
I don't care about hate mail, man. I'm just at that point, I was just sick of the politics of it all. I don't send all the hate mail you want by all means. That doesn't affect me at all. But.
Well, I mean, over the politics, though, over the whole, let the people raising the debate about, let's talk about 2016 Ghostbusters.
It's like literally Ghostbusters was 2016's Joker, Dragon. That's not even an exaggeration.
Yes, of course.
Except a far less successful Joker.
Pretty much. And I tell you, folks, I gave that. No, I don't want. I'm not even going to dignify. I'm not even going to bring up 2016 anymore. You know, I'm not even going to dignify with like talking about it. You know what? I'm gonna draw the line right there. Anyway.
Oh God.
Anyway.
Stop dancing.
Okay. Look, my point is so obviously it's been on our minds. I want to say going back to that 30th anniversary. So it's been a while now. At least it's been in the air since then. Of course, 2016 comes around. It's kind of like it was kind of brought up again, if not for the first time for us. So then years have gone by, and we kind of had a dual realization. Of course, they announced Ghostbusters 2020, which in a perfect world be a return to form. At least something like kind of a better. Yeah, big point. At the very least, it's going to be something in a better spirit of
it'll be hard to be worse than 26.
So at least it has that going for it. At least it has that going for it. So whatever happens, at least we'll still have that feather in its cap. Regardless, the you have the Jason Reitman, Ivan Reitman's son. He'll be helming the new Ghostbusters that's coming out next year, and along with the fact of this year marks the 35th anniversary of Ghostbusters. So it's kind of with the stars sort of aligned. We figured, you know what, to avoid like another reason not to talk about Ghostbusters next year, like, well, 2020 came out. I don't know what's going to happen there, but maybe there'll be another debate. I figured, you know what, let's cover it before any of that.
I can't imagine the 2020 Ghostbusters is going to be as controversial.
I mean, it has Paul Rudd in it. I mean, come on, that's got to be, it's a feather in anyone's cap.
Oh, that's really good casting.
we have Paul Rudd. We have I believe Finn Wolfhard. I believe is going to be in it too. So I mean,
it's okay.
I'm just saying the Paul Rudd is the main draw. You know, what I mean?
Paul Rudd is absolutely like he fits like a glove into Ghostbusters. Absolutely.
Point being, we got some talent on the new Ghostbusters, and it's in the hands of the director's son. And I don't know. The point being, it seems like we're going to be in good shape. But again, regardless, we're not talking about 2020 because 2020 isn't here yet. We're talking about the original, man. We're celebrating 35 years of Ghostbusters, but also kind of Tiki revisiting it, kind of with it's been a while. So let's see it.
All right, so here's the deal, folks. This movie to me, it's always one of those movies where it's like, Dragon, I know for a fact that if I grew up on this movie, I would have loved it. It's right up my alley in terms of that. It's like I love supernatural stuff. I love comedy. I love like effects movies. At least I mean, I've kind of, I've kind of gone towards like, I fancy like indie stuff like The Lighthouse these days. But when I was a kid, I really loved effects movies. So Dragon, here's the deal. Like when I was growing up, my parents, they showed me The Shining. They showed me Scream. Didn't show me this. What the hell, Mom and Dad? What the actual hell?
I hope Tiki's therapist is taking notes on this one.
I mean, I don't know. I will always bring up the fact that they showed me The Shining when I was like 10. I will always bring that up to them. But no, I don't know, man. For the longest time, I didn't even know about this movie. Like, I saw the logo and I knew about Slimer because I saw like my okay, the costume shop that my grandpa had. Yeah. We actually had a pretty cool Slimer mask in there. And so I knew about Slimer, and Slimer was also in the Cartoon All-Stars special, so I knew about Slimer through that. I knew about the ectoplasm cooler, the, of course, the famous high C drink. I remember that. I remember that still being in stores when I was a kid. Oddly enough, Dragon, I have no idea how it slipped by me. I don't know why my parents never rented it for me. I really don't know why. We rented all the other 80s staples, like the Indiana Jones and Back to the Futures and, and stuff like that, all that good stuff. So I really don't I'm honestly kind of thinking about asking my dad, like, hey, why did you guys never rent Ghostbusters for me as a kid? I mean, Dragon, I'll tell you what, like they showed me E.T. and that fucking traumatized me way more than this movie ever could have. Oh God. So yeah, now Dragon, you definitely worded it right, my friend, is that it's not that I don't like this movie. I like this movie a fair deal. I really do. I mean, I certainly from an effects point of view and from just a spectacle point of view, it's an awesome movie. it's just one of those things where I don't have the nostalgia and fandom for it. And that's simply because I didn't grow up with it for some reason. For some reason that I literally want to ask my parents about. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, if I would have grown up with it, I'm sure I would love it like everyone else loves it. But because I didn't grow up with it, because I only watched it a couple times, and the first time I watched it was like in high school, when already, even back in high school, you know, of course, it had already kind of spread. You know, it's one of those movies where it's like, you almost know the movie through references. You know, like almost every scene in the movie has been referenced and parodied in some way. So by the time I got around to watching that, I remember liking it, but I also remember just kind of like, well, this isn't like the greatest movie of all time or anything. I mean, I wouldn't hang my hat on this movie as like the end all be all of filmmaking, and I still don't think that. But I can see how if you grew up with this, man, I could see you worshiping this thing. So I definitely respect this thing as a classic. Revisiting it, I definitely like it. I still have a couple issues with it, mostly for a couple of the characters. The characters are fine, but I don't think they're the high point of the movie. We'll get into that. I know that's kind of a hot take. But you know, like I said, I feel like if I had more nostalgia for this, I would have, you know, obviously I would have more fondness for it. That's a redundant sentence, Tiki. But you get my point. You get my point. I'm done.
So again, of course, you know, Ghostbusters milestone 35 years. It's a movie that is absolutely, as Tiki said, definitely has a following to it. You know, has a following and a brand to many. Very much an enduring classic in many circles. You know, you have your comedy, you have your sci-fi, a little bit of adventure in there, a little dash of adventure, let's call it. You know, of course, you know, it's going to have movies. You have a few animated shows. You have toys galore. You have a very cool looking game. You have importantly, you have ghost heads.
Sorry, you're talking about the new game, right? Not the Nintendo game.
Well, yeah, it meant like the PlayStation 3 game.
Okay,
right?
yes, there was a really crappy Nintendo game. I have a reference to it once we get there.
Sure. Well, point being, like the one where that's kind of like the quasi Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
That one we got everybody back and it looked pretty cool. I was kind of jealous of like, oh man, I never got that game, and then the PS3 got outdated. Darn it. Anyway, so then of course you have ghost heads, and I remember I watched a really fascinating thing about these ghost heads. I actually met one at the Comic-Con recently. I've never met a ghost head before. It's really really neat. It was very enthusiastic. Do you know what ghost heads are?
I assume are they the people that dressed up as Ghostbusters for charity?
Essentially, yeah. It's charity along with I'm saying charity. I guess when you put it that way, yeah, they mostly charity. I never really thought of it that way. Point being, these basically the uber Ghostbuster fans are the guys who it's a collective.
Specifically groups of maybe this is a different thing, but I remember there being like, you know, like different, like each city had like a Ghostbusters.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the same thing. Okay,
it's the same thing. I just kind of forgot. Like, yeah, they do charity work. I just kind of looked at them as kind of the collective before I looked at it as like, yeah, they do charity as well. But
okay,
basically,
gotcha.
Imagine it's like a volunteer firefighter thing, but for Ghostbusters. That's kind of what you have going. Like every city has like a different patch. It's a really cool thing. Every city has a different patch that's kind of representative of the state with the Ghostbusters logo. It's like a different working of the Ghostbusters logo on top of there. Anyway, so yeah, these ghost heads. I watched this thing on. It was really fascinating about kind of like the fan collectives. Well, I mean, Ghostbusters has a very unique, very awesome following. Man, it does. Mm-hmm. And for me, I wasn't there. Ghostbusters wasn't. I don't have a lot of nostalgic attachment to Ghostbusters. I watched it not. I think we all had the song as a kid. I think as a kid, I always had the song. Always like heard that at Halloween parties and stuff. And just point being, every October rolled around, I always heard Ghostbusters, and maybe a touch here or there, like a little bit of Slimer. The Marshmallow Man Slimer probably being the most predominant symbols of Ghostbuster, along with the song. But I mean, I had seen the movie a little bit, not my youth of youths, but let's just say as I grew up, I watched the Ghostbusters. It wasn't there for me for a long time, but I had watched it, and honestly, I just look at it. It's a great movie. I think it's a great movie because at its core, it's a simple story. I love that it's just kind of the simple story of these friends starting a small business that literally grew beyond their dreams. Literally grew in the sense of a marshmallow man just kind of growing. Like, oh man, I never knew we'd get to this point. Our little kind of ragtag business turned into this giant. We're facing a giant marshmallow man. That's kind of what the movie is to me. it's kind of like the dream grew beyond it grew beyond whatever they could ever imagine and turned these outcasts into heroes in a sense. And it's something funny and kind of there's something really funny and pure in that. And that's always what kind of gravitated me towards the Ghostbusters. I never really got into all the extended stuff. Like I checked out like the footage of the game, and
the cartoon is iconic.
Yeah, I've seen a few episodes of the cartoon. I never fully got into Ghostbusters, but I admire the people who have and really know their stuff about it. But that's the thing. Like I had the two movies, and I've kind of checked in on.
I've never seen Ghostbusters 2. I've heard decent things about it.
I mean, it's not the first one, but it's fine. It's a fine movie.
Would you compare it to Wayne's World 2?
I would. I don't know if many would. I would.
Because Wayne's World 2 to me is like the benchmark of a good comedy sequel.
That's the thing. Like it doesn't. I think it's a solid. I think it's a solid sequel. Many people raise the argument that it's basically the same movie over again, but I think it's I think it's fun though. I'd recommend checking it out at the very least, right. Especially upon revisiting this. It's definitely one we could always consider. I'm not saying we'll do this, but you could always consider for a seasonal shenanigans, let's say. But I don't know. It's set around the holidays.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, one thing I want to mention, Dragon, is I love the way that this thing adds a physical dimension to the supernatural. I think that is really kind of like a game changer of, the ectoplasm and the slime and, the Zool gargoyles and all that. It adds just such a great sense of tangibility to ghosts, and I don't really think I've ever seen that sort of tangibility in a ghost story replicated quite like this. And so, yeah, that's definitely probably my favorite element of the movie is all the supernatural stuff.
I mean, you know me. I love my gadgets. I love my tech. I love my kind of world building. Kind of my logical logic and world building by proxy of that. I love when we do that sort of stuff. And Ghostbusters definitely has that for days with the proton pack. Like it's kind of an unlicensed nuclear accelerator on your back. It's like that sort of stuff. I love when we do that, and I love the we don't have stuff like Danny Phantom without Ghostbusters. Like that's kind of the legacy I always will attach to Ghostbusters. And we don't have kind of like Spider-Man meets Ghostbusters and Danny Phantom, obviously without the Ghostbusters of it all. So it's like what if we could hunt ghosts but kind of make it kind of cinematic and kind of fun, but what if we just took this thing we're hunting ghosts, we made it like Exterminators. That's the joy of God. I just love the mundanity and the practicality of the Ghostbusters. That was the sell for me, and that's kind of why it's so fun to go back to. And I think I would summarize it's why a lot of people just there's just something so anyone could be a Ghostbuster, and that's kind of the fun of it all. Any average joke is you zip up the suit, and again, it'd be it's a lot more. It's kind of what if you were a sci-fi firefighter of sorts instead of fighting fires? You're going up against ghosts and the supernatural and all the paranormal things under the sun. It's a fun premise.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay then. Yeah, let's just break down the characters.
Well, a little bit of background.
Oh, I'm sorry, you don't have background listed here. My bad. I need a roadmap, Dragon, or else I'm just completely lost. Go ahead.
Sorry, we get a little hectic again. Mentioning the firefighter analogy, a little hectic with certain things. Anywho, real quick, there's a little bit of background. So, Ghostbusters, of course, Dan Aykroyd in real life, he grew up with the paranormal, and he loves it, man. This is Dan Aykroyd knows about the crystal skulls. He knows about all that sort of stuff, man. Dan Aykroyd, he's a huge advocate of the paranormal in every sense of the word. Basically, he is very much the authority on all this, the Sumerian gods and all that sort of stuff. Dan Aykroyd knows his stuff. So back in the day, he and Belushi, they were collaborating a lot on things. Of course, it's post Blues Brothers. They had great success when they've collaborated in the past. So they kind of had Dan Aykroyd had this idea, of course, being the consummate writer as well. He had the idea for Ghost Mashers. Ghost Mashers, I believe, was the original title they were going with here. Ghost Mashers. It was this basically they were ghosts. They were more like a SWAT team. It was you had you send in these guys in SWAT gear they go after the ghosts, and there's a little bit more. It was a little bit more extensive. This is stuff the comics have done later. I've dipped into the comics a little bit, but I don't really read them. I'm not up to date on them at all. this kind of stuff where they were time traveling and they were interdimensional. There was interdimensional travel as well, like going to other realms to stop ghosts, that sort of stuff. And some of the stuff people are speculating maybe 2020 is going to deal with. So the point being, like, this is what stuff was in the original pitch that he's kind of been made. It's kind of popped up here and there over the years with Ghostbusters lore. So it's point being, originally was like going to be like 3 guys who were like kind of like a kind of SWAT team that deals with ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of sold Ivan Reitman. So him in the directing chair, of course. So they sold this to Ivan Reitman, of course, in the years while they were kind of developing this. Unfortunately, John Belushi passed away, and of course, this kind of put a kink in things. So they go to. So then it kind of goes to Harold Ramis. So they collaborate with Harold Ramis, and that's where we get kind of the more grounded kind of exterminator. We scaled things back quite a deal. We made things a little bit more practical and kind of realistic, like setting in New York type stuff, So, of course, as you know, as you're firmly aware, the Ghostbusters name, it's been used a little bit. So the movie was in a legal limbo a lot with the name because you had Ghostbusters as in technically the Disney. I think Disney was technically the first to ever use the Ghostbusters name with that.
Oh yeah, right, sure.
With the original Ghostbusters being Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, basically when you had a net to catch the ghost, that sort of thing.
Right.
Then you
that
had
sense.
Then you had the weird Ghostbusters with the gorilla and an animated show, which when they made an animated Ghostbusters, they ran that's why they have to keep adding the real Ghostbusters, and that's why they have to keep jazzing up the name of the animated show, because that one they really had issues with legally. So the point being, they eventually land on Ghostbusters. I can't quite lead you through the nitty gritty of it, but let's just say eventually they get the name, they clear it. It took them about a year to make. They had about a year to make the movie. Of course, Bill Murray very infamously, the man never just signs on for a movie. There's always, you have to cajole him, you have to get him, the stars have to align, you have to call Bill Murray at the right point. You know this, you've seen
unless your name is Wes Anderson.
Unless your name is Wes Anderson, usually it's just that you just have to wait for that. Sometimes it's like calling the hotline, like pray to God Bill Murray picks up. In this case, Bill Murray, from what I hear, the way they got Bill Murray to get on this movie was, of course, Bill Murray was a big draw at this time. They got Murray because in the same year, in '84, they had this movie, The Razor's Edge. Now, basically, they funded this movie for him, and that got him to sign on for the movie. So pretty much, of course, this movie is very much an effects marvel. Did some next level stuff, like in the proton packs. They used like some rotoscoping techniques and like how the beams look, really cool stuff there, a lot of great puppetry and so on and so forth. And of course, after the movie comes out, big success. The big thing I want to note here in closing with the background is that this movie was not intended for kids when it was first made.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely not.
So that's why you can see
blowjob jokes and
yeah, and that was actually he was going to date that ghost. That was going to be like a romantic thing. They had to scale that.
Man, that would have been fun.
Yeah, they had to scale. They had to scale some stuff back. For a little bit of timing, pacing. Of course, I don't know if like halfway through production they realized there might be a little bit more marketability to the kids and such. And that's why if you see the second one, Tiki, they took out some of the adult things that are in this movie. There's no smoking in the second one. That sort of stuff. There's that sort of stuff. And basically that's why this movie takes 2 years for like you get the toys and the animated series going, because like it was kind of the Star Wars factor. Only they didn't have a George Lucas who kind of I had the foresight to buy the toy rights. We didn't have that sort of thing going on here. Like 2 years later, like we have a series, we have toys, with marketing bazaar, ecto coolers, you name it.
Man, I do remember liking the ecto cooler as a kid. I will say that much.
Tiki, let me ask you this. Did it turn your tongue green?
Oh, God, I honestly don't remember. Was that one of the marketing gimmicks of it?
No, I'm just making a reptile bar.
Oh, okay. All right.
Anywho. All right, let's go through the characters here. The enduring characters.
Hot take.
Hot take. Go on. Hot take.
Oh, boy. Dragon, I don't know, man. I don't know. This isn't my type of humor. All 4 of these guys are just kind of sarcastic jerks.
Really?
Yes, all 4 of them.
I didn't get any of it.
Maybe not Egon, maybe not Winston. I cannot.
You realize that's half, right? That's not exactly all 4 of them. That's half.
Dragon. I just the sarcastic like snide. I like Bill Murray more when Bill Murray is like involved in some sort of morality play, like, you know, like Groundhog Day or Scrooged, or yes, those proverbial Wes Anderson movies. I don't know, man. Just classic sarcastic Bill Murray who's just a jerk for the sake of being a jerk. I'm not a big fan of, man.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
So yeah, so let's start with Pete Venkman. I know this is an unpopular opinion. I know. He's just a jerk, man. He's just kind of a jerk. I don't know what to tell you.
I'm going to take a wild stab in the dark here, if I may. You didn't like the negative reinforcement on the ESP scene at the start, did you?
I mean, just his whole, like, that didn't bother me, no, but, like, I don't know. We'll get into it more when we get into Dana, but I think some of the problems I have with Pete also kind of go to Dana as well, so just in general, I think that whole love story is, like, very, very, very forced, to me, at least. I don't know, I'm not a big fan of how they just, like, for like 1/10 of this movie, that it kind of suddenly becomes a love triangle for like a scene and a half. I'm not a fan of that. I don't know. This is why I didn't really see this movie, man.
God.
Like I said, I think Bill Murray to me is at his best when he's getting his comeuppance, and this movie has no comeuppance for him.
Well, I didn't quite see it that way, but I rather like Bill Murray in the role. I thought there's some charm for days there. Again, I think the negative reinforcement scene kind of says it all there. Where he's always zapping this poor guy in the ESPs. He was doing it to get girls. He's doing it to impress.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. The dude is just like, I don't know, man. I'm not saying this and kind of like, it doesn't fit with the Me Too thing. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not going there. I'm just saying the dude is a little bit of a womanizer, man.
What's the point? He's a womanizer.
That's the point, I know, but like, I don't like characters like that. I don't relate to characters like that. I don't know.
Well, the good news is you have 3 others you can take a stab at with that.
And the 3 others are better.
There you go.
Others are better. It's just Pete is the main character, and the main character is kind of a jerk. I don't know.
Well, again, main in the
He's
sense
just a sarcastic jerk, Dragon. I don't know what else to tell you.
All right. Let me speak to what I liked about Venkman, if I may. So personally, like, I always like that negative reinforcing, because it tells you everything you need to know about this guy, and that he's very much kind of the game show host quality to him. There, he's very much kind of like this guy. He's definitely the song and dance kind of wise guy of the group. That's kind of who he is. He's kind of he's the layman we had before we get introduced to Winston. Winston Zedmore there. He's kind of like what's a 3-man group. He's basically his job within the Ghostbusters is to rule out the crazies. He's the guy with the training in the psychology of people to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's the one who can basically, sardonically, he rules out the crazies. That's kind of his whole shtick there. I also like that he drives the business side of things. He's kind of the cutthroat business side of things, and that, let's go into business for ourselves. The dean kicked us out. Let's start business for ourselves. So in a sense, he's kind of like, do you remember Comic Book Men at all? Like anything like Walt Flanagan, like the group?
I mean, I never, I watched a few episodes of it. I never actively watched it.
I mean, do you know who Brian Johnson is? Is that ring?
Nah, is he the guy with the beard?
Yes, the guy with the giant Alan.
Yes, I know who that is. Yes.
Well, Brian Johnson, of course, he does not work at the store, but he just kind of hangs out there and he's going to make sardonic comments. So, in a sense, like he's the guy's like championing the business, but at the same time, he's not really he's not as invested in like doing all the work along.
He's kind of got like a Brian Possian quality to him.
Sure, a little bit of that too. That's what I'm saying. Like, he's just kind of like the guy in the background, like says, "Yeah, I approve of this idea, but you know what? I want to put in all the work. I just want to kind of champion it." He's the guy at the vision, so
yeah.
It's got that going for him. I would argue, it becomes a little bit more invested as things go on. When I think over time he develops some feelings for Dana. And originally, it's kind of like a guy.
Bullshit over time. Don't give me that. Oh, for God's sake. No, I'm sorry. It's just this movie is just. I'm not going to give you that, Dragon. This movie, it's like, for better or for worse, this movie is very much a, like, as soon as he sees her, he falls instantly in love with her type of deal.
Well, no, it's the thing. He doesn't fall. He's attracted to her, but I think over time, again, there's a scene.
I guess love is the wrong word, but like he is a womanizer, so yeah, he's drawn to her immediately. It's like there's no build up to it. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I'm not saying. I think I think he grows to, like, kind of like her through the course of the movie before it's just like an attraction to her. All right, I'm not saying it's like they're gonna get married or anything. I'm just saying.
But, like, they don't even have, like, they have, like, what, like, maybe like 3 scenes before she gets possessed. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, so point being, I like that he had, like Bill Murray kind of brought some subtle moments along with kind of the straight man with a wit quality that he had with the movie there. Like, basically he's crass, but I would argue, some charisma there. Crass but charismatic in places. Again, very game show host. Like, where again, this guy is definitely just he's having fun with the room pretty much when in the scenes. I like that. Bankman's a lot of fun to me. All right. So that's something we can all dance to. Let's talk about race dance.
Okay, first of all, I just got to acknowledge that I freaking love Dan Aykroyd.
There you
go. I
go.
love how loony the man has become in his old age. I love the whole, like, Crystal Skull vodka thing.
Yep.
Do you know about Crystal Skull vodka, right?
I mentioned in the backstory the Crystal Skull, the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, of course he's done, like, some interviews. Basically done I told you, Dan Aykroyd was super into the paranormal, which basically is the reason we have Ghostbusters, and of course this leads to the Crystal Skulls. Like, Dan Aykroyd's up to date on all the stuff, all the paranormal stuff. Of course, it leads to a lot of conversations today with Joe Rogan. Let's say on a very extensive podcast.
But I got to admit, Dragon, with Ray, the only thing I can kind of glean from his character is that he's a little bit of an idiot. Like, he seems to be the one that's always messing up.
He is, but he has, like, the childlike wonder to him. He's the schoolboy of the group. He's the student of the paranormal. He's not the teacher, but he's the student.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. I like the character. I just don't really think there's a lot to him. Like, out of all 4 of them, I really don't think there's a lot there. I like him. Don't get me wrong. I think he's way more likable than Venkman is, but
I think what's really cool about him is that, like Aykroyd, he's channeling a lot of the love that they had obviously put into the script. A lot of love for that paranormal is kind of channeled into the childlike enthusiasm of this character. It's like, you gotta try this pole, he's very...
Yeah, sure. That stuff is fun, definitely.
That's the thing. He's just like, he's very into the paranormal, therefore, he's not... Basically, he's an idiot in the field because this is there's no training for this job, and he's the consummate researcher. He's up to date. He's very enthusiastic in the subject. He's doing all the research and everything. Where Egon's building the stuff. They all have, like, a role. Like, he and Egon have really great chemistry. Where he's the student, Egon's the teacher. That's how that goes here. Like, Aykroyd is very much the authoritative exposition in the room there, where it's like, I love he's making the arrest or giving the warning to Gozer at the end there. It says, please return to your original dimension of origin, like that sort of stuff. I love that he's like, he's very genuine. He's very earnest. He's the most earnest of the Ghostbusters, let's say. Like, he brings that whimsy, which is probably like kind of to connect to the ghost. Like, he's kind of like, there's a whimsy to the character, which is why he would be, like, so open to, like, let's go for the ghost. And he's just he's the nice optimist of the group, let's say. So anyway, I think everyone has like an appeal, like, that race stance, he's a nice guy,
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Egon, he is probably out of the 4 of them the one who's the most well-defined of a character, I think, and he's pretty lovable.
Of course, the wonderful, the dearly departed Harold Ramis, unfortunately, left us.
Yeah, it makes me sad. It makes me sad watching it, yeah.
Excellent director as well as writer, who he needed to write this movie with Dan Aykroyd, so he brought a lot to this. Again, he brought a lot of, like, let's just make him like an exterminators kind of side of things there.
Yeah, but I kind of love the sort of the dorky kind of everyman quality that this guy has, where he's kind of like the expert in a field that nobody really cares about, so no one really gives him the time of day because of that, even though he is kind of a genius.
Yeah, some people have said he's kind of the Spock of the group. I'd say like, what if like Spock were more socialized? And this is like a guy in a group of friends. As in like, what if this guy definitely? If you'll notice, he rarely smiles in the movie, and that's kind of like a little
Dragon,
touch.
he's the Ross.
Well, I guess he's not as. I mean, he's pretty secure in himself, though. That's the difference.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I don't know. That's not a great analogy either. I don't know.
I'm just saying people have like kind of like compared him to Spock, and that he's a man of science. He's very dedicated. There's not a lot of like,
I don't think Spock in there either, though, because he's like way more funny and likable than Spock.
Well, I'd say he's a more sociable Spock. That's why I would break down. That's why I would improve that kind of description. Anyway, the point being, he's the brains of the group. He's the teacher. He's the guy that builds all the cool stuff. I do have a fondness for Egon because of that. Instantly, I love that Egon is a guy like the way Christopher Lloyd, of course, is a mecca of like how to make exposition fun. How to make exposition great and entertaining, no matter what it is.
Of course, yeah.
Now, I'm not saying it's to the same degree as Chris Williams. It's in a very different way here. I like that Egon, though. I love that he's a guy who can make a Twinkie, like he can add like dramatic heft to a Twinkie. Like a giant, like 20-foot psychokinetic Twinkie. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. There's there's something to be said for that, man. And I love that I love that like Egon, we it's like we pulled the reins back. It's like I guess the other reason I pulled the Spock comparison, the old adage with Spock is that Spock had like a Leonard Nimoy had like this Harry Belafonte comparison to Spock, where basically like Harry Belafonte, the man would move so fewly on stage. When he would move, it would be a big deal. Egon, he's very much kind of like, he's playing things very, very tightly, very straight, very much like this is a guy who's like collects spores, mold, and fungus. He's not putting a lot of he's not emoting a lot, but he's playing the comedy of the scene very deadpan, very well. But when he says your mother, like he's really pissed off at he's really pissed off at Peck later on. Like that's a moment. Oh god, he got snapped, man. That's awesome. Like again, Egon's like he's calling this idiot out, like you destroyed my containment field, you prick. Yeah. I'd argue Egon's kind of the breakout rock star of the group, but that might just be me. I don't know. A lot of people like Egon. I don't fault him for that.
I can see that. I feel like with the favorite characters, it's either Egon or Vakeman.
Yeah.
I mean, not to say that Ray and Winston don't have their fans. Of course they do, but
people love. I think all four of them definitely have a fan base for sure. But I think we'll hear a lot of Vankman, a lot of Spengler.
Yeah.
Right.
By the way, Egon Spengler, kind of like a two last name sort of situation there.
It is.
You know what I mean?
Yep. I love the nickname for it. I forget if they use it more in the sequel or not, because I remember it, but I don't remember on the rewatch. It's Spengy. I love how I think Ray calls him Spengy for short. All right,
let's get to the ultimate, like, everyman of everyman's Dragon. This dude is like the poster child for everyman's. Yeah. Just the whole, like, I'm just doing this for a paycheck, man. Mr. Winston Zedmore.
Yes, played by the wonderful Ernie Hudson, who we actually heard this year in a new series. Remember, he was in Infinity Train.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Ernie Hudson does a lot of good stuff. He was a main character in Oz along with J.K. Simmons.
That he was. My God, Ernie Hudson, he seems like such a cool guy. Anyway, so Ernie Hudson, I remember he once voiced Lucius Fox in one of those crappy, the in-continuity, DC original anime movies, the ones I can't stand. It's like, why would you waste Ernie Hudson on this Lucius Fox, man? He was good as Lucius Fox. Like, why would we put him in this? But like, get Ernie Hudson play Lucius Fox in a movie or something, man. That'd be awesome. Right? Point being, Ernie Hudson, if we ever need a new Lucius Fox, he's my pick for Lucius Fox. I think he's great. Regardless, yeah. So you're absolutely right. He's kind of he's the proper layman of the group. And Vankman was kind of like when the group was down to three. Vankman was kind of the ipso facto layman of the group, kind of the audience's POV, but the proper audience's POV is Zedmore, easily.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the big claim to fame he has the Judgment Day scene. We got to talk about the Judgment Day scene.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Very human scene. Him kind of bringing the religion of the whole ghost thing. Like, what if this is the end times? It's like a nice quiet scene between him and Ray. Like again, Ray he's almost the perennial. Again, he's the outsider looking in, and he's kind of the perennial guy of the group here. He's the one saying like if Ray's the child, like one of the group, we pair him up with Winston, who's kind of like the most like kind of grown up of the group. They're all just kind of like these guys running around in these suits. It's like he's the one saying, Like he's the guy who's acknowledging, I'm doing this for a paycheck, man, but I'll do anything you want, to pay the bills. He's the one saying, but Ray, haven't you ever thought like why all these ghosts are around here? Like, what if I don't know, there's just something nice and humble about that. He's a very humble character. He's very much like
yeah. I mean, like I said, man, he's not just the everyman of this movie. I would argue that he is kind of the proverbial everyman of movies going forward. Like this guy is he's an archetype.
He is, but I do have to call this out though. And this always bothers me every time I rewatch Ghostbusters. I feel so bad for Ernie Hudson because Ernie Hudson in this movie, like poor one, he really gets the shaft in this movie. He's great in the movie. Unfortunately, he gets the shaft in a few regards. One, that he's like it doesn't really matter, but if you're really looking at this sort of thing, it's like you'd imagine he'd be like the fourth build, right? You imagine you build your four Ghostbusters, but he's like the sixth. He's not even like the fifth. He's not even after Sigourney Weaver. He's after
Moranis.
That's what I'm saying. He's like the seventh. He's like the seventh in the billing. He's like, that's not fair to him.
No, I hear you.
I mean, that's the thing, and the fact is, he was really good in his scenes, and he brought a lot to it. Like, I'm getting my own lawyer. Like that line sells to that guy. He's like, guys, no offense, I'm getting my own lawyer. Again, he
only comes in like halfway through the movie. I wish he had a little more screen time.
That thing originally had more screen time. He had like a backstory. It was like yeah, he did. Like he was in the army. He had like an army background. I forget if he was demolitions or what, but he had I think it was demolitions, which probably would have lent itself to a Stay Puft thing, but I'm not sure. Regardless, it's point being he has he had good chemistry with Ray as well as just being the ultimate everyman. And so it's a solid Ernie Hudson role, man. And I hear he has really good interactions with fans too. Just get that out there too. I hear he's like he loves being kind of like synonymous with Ghostbusters. That's good to hear. All right.
Okay, let's get into Dana. I don't know, man. She's just kind of like generic love interest / generic damsel in distress. My God, Sigourney Weaver got so much better in Alien. That's all I have to say, Dragon.
She took this very intentionally. Post Alien, she wanted to play against the type. I guess she really elected for the damsel in distress.
Oh, this is post Alien?
The first one, yeah.
Oh, my bad. Okay, never mind.
That's what I'm saying. Like she specifically, but because of that, though,
I feel embarrassed now. Thank you for correcting me.
No, that's the thing. Very specifically, she wanted to she wanted to avoid being purely known for Alien. She wanted to play something.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. I feel better about it now.
Yeah, so you're not too off on that. That's the fact. You're going to diversify.
I'm still not crazy about the damsel in distress thing, but it makes sense for her in the career path. Yeah, that's. I don't know, man. To me, she just doesn't have that much of a character. Like I said, I'm not crazy about like the whole like, oh, she's with a guy and the guy gets jealous of Bankman for like a minute. Like, what the hell was that scene even about, Dragon? That's probably my least favorite scene in the whole movie.
Well, I'll admit, I think that scene's the main point of that scene is okay. He asks her out, and she says yes, and he wore her down in the scene. It's just the weird, like, why do we need the cellist guy? Like, I didn't
That's
have
what
a chance.
I'm saying. I don't get the jealous guy, man. I don't get
No, not the cellist. He plays the cello.
Oh, right, yeah.
That's the thing, like the whole, like, I didn't get to meet you, sir, but I'm sure you're a nice guy. He walks off, but that's the thing. You're right, yeah. We kind of like a little uncomplicated the scene. I don't know if this is like maybe like they kind of shifted some scenes around. I don't know if like you're supposed to be moving more or the point being, if there was more of that guy, I think they scale it down properly. Yeah, it's like the little bit remains, but Dana Barrett. I like that while she is damsel in distress, I think there's a relatability to her. She's just a woman going about her day. Like she's getting her groceries. She has kind of a nosy neighbor. I like that she's smart. She's the one like calling out like these guys are kind of some oddballs. These Ghostbusters. I need them here. I don't want to work with these guys, but I need them because who else am I going to go to with this problem? Like I think she's a good. She kind of has the consummate like you need a character that. To kind of be our eyes looking into the Ghostbusters, if anyone were in like a precarious situation that she is, like this poor woman, she's got to deal with these oddballs. She gets possessed by essentially a Satan dog, but she gets possessed by like a Sumerian demi-dog of some variety.
Rule, motherfucker.
Exactly. She, she kind of represents kind of our humanity and our stakes, as in like this lady who we've kind of identify with. We don't want anything bad to happen to her, and obviously, it's things happen to her. Yeah, like I like the chemistry she had with Bill Murray. It's in the sense of like she's not falling for it. But that's I think over the course he kind of grows a little bit of respect for that. She's not falling for my stuff. And later on, when he could have had her way, he could have had his way with her very easily. He didn't. So again, she was like, he's grown to have genuine fondness for not just seeing her as like I've got it. I'm gonna win you over. That's something kind of nice there.
I don't really think the kiss at the end is earned.
Well, I mean, he did save her life. I don't know.
I get that. I don't know.
If it makes you feel any better, they don't really end up together in the second one either. If it makes you feel any better,
it makes me feel a little better, I guess. I don't know. Is she even mentioned in the second one?
Well, no, she's in the second one. She's
okay.
I'm just saying, like they don't get married or anything, so it's like
Yeah, that honestly does make me feel a little better.
I'm saying the relationship is pretty realistic in that, like they tried it and didn't work, and it's just like they're not there's a respect there for each other. That's kind of the way. Anyway.
Sure. Okay.
Anywho, so let's talk about kind of these characters are more footnotes, but they're fun footnotes though. We have Janine, played by Annie Potts, and I love me some Annie Potts, man. She's wonderful.
Yeah, Janine is probably one of the more iconic parts of this movie, honestly.
Oh yeah, I love that. And this is tricky because in the second one, she's kind of paired up with Tully. She's kind of paired up with Louis Tully.
Okay.
because
like a fun combo.
Purely because of the cartoon, because the cartoon paired them together. At least kind of hinted they were together. But I always liked. I gotta tell you, I loved. I'm not saying I was against the whole Tully thing, but I really liked her, and I liked her and Egon. Like that, she and Egon had a kind of a sly thing going on the side. I love that. Like he's under the table doing God knows what, and he's just there's like Egon and Janine. That's it. And at the end during the credits, like she goes, they hug each other. It's nice. I don't know. It's like I love a good secretary character. I love Janine is one of the Hall of Famer secretary characters. Like we got one.
Well, I would wager to say that Janine is like much like how Winston. I'm sorry, I don't know why I was blanking on his name. Much like how Winston is kind of like the archetype of the everyman working stiff character, Janine is very much like an iconic secretary character.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
I think it's kind of a hard sell of a job, but again, it's like it fits her like a glove. Though again, like she's this dispatch lady, and she's the one hitting the alarm. She's kind of booking the work, and of course, once it flows in, boys it flowing. Of course, Louis Tully, played by Rick Moranis. Of course, basically kind of an accountant and apparently party animal.
Yeah, Tully is. I gotta say, this guy, I barely even remember him from my first watch, and he was a fun surprise. Dragon Moranis is just having a ball with this role.
So you really forgot Moranis was in the movie?
I did, yeah, kind of.
That's awesome. I envy your experience. Like,
no, yeah, you're right. It was very much a like, hey, I don't remember this character.
By the way, because I couldn't show you during the convention report I did. I love that. There was a guy. He had a really good costume. He was dressed as Seymour, and he was holding like what's the plant's name again? What's the
Audrey 2.
Audrey too. He had like a little potted plant that basically was a puppet. Therefore, I assume he had his hand in the other end of it. Basically, he would jump out at people and like jump out at them. Awesome.
Nice.
Any points? Sorry, a little Rick Moranis crossover there, folks. But yeah, Louis Tully is basically he's the guy trying too hard with Dana. There is basically what if Peter Van had no kind of charisma there? It's like what if he didn't have like the song and dance man personality? But he tried, darn it. And just kind of some classic Moranis comedy. Or it's just like I love it. Just basically like, he's telling his guest to his face, like, "I saved money by inviting clients instead of friends. Try the salmon." I got all the bargains that they're making during that. But it's funny. Originally, supposed to be John Candy. John Candy was supposed to be like this German neighbor, but he turned it down.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Yeah.
That would have changed the dynamic a little bit.
It really would have. It really would have. I think they made the right call with Moranis. All right.
Okay. All right, let's go through the plot. Let's kind of just try and streamline this as much as we can.
Yeah, sure. We covered some stuff already, so you should go by.
Sure. All right, so we'll start with of course, the famous library scene. Very, very good cold open. Dragon sets the stage very well. Kind of, I like how we start with a creepy scene instead of a funny scene.
I love how very kind of core New York Ghostbusters feels in that we're not going to all the iconic locations. We're not going to like all, but we're going to stuff like the New York Public Library. Like that's like deep cuts New York. We're not going like we're not going to the Empire State Building. We're not going to the Chrysler Building. We're just like in a library, it feels like a very classic, like a haunted location. Uses always like a library or a bookshelf. Anytime you go into a mansion of some variety, it feels very. Architecture is a big part of this movie. Haunted, spooky architecture is a very important part of this movie.
I love the fact that like the building itself is haunted and takes on a life of its own. That is really, really cool to me.
Yeah, it's awesome. Scott Snyder. I would love to think Scott Snyder loves Ghostbusters because of the architecture stuff, but I'm joking. Be cool though.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it's a really popular movie. I'd say odds are he probably does if he grew up with it.
Yeah, of course. It's really great in the library too. We do a lot with a little in terms of the effects here. Like we have books that are stacked. Really kind of like haunted mansions. That like books that are just kind of stacked very eerily. We have like flying note cards, slime. Of course, we have the first encounter with the Ghostbusters once they're called here, and they're like kind of asked to check the thing before they're actually had become the Ghostbusters. And we have one of the great gags. Again, before they had proton packs, it's like, well, what do we do? Like, get her, Ray. That was your plan. Get her.
Yeah.
Just so funny. Like, get her. They had no plan beyond to get they're scared out of their gourds and they run out of the place. Just a lot of fun. So. Of course, this leads them to start the business. Of course, at the core, this is what I love most about the movie. Them starting the business. It's a very simple story. At the core, three underdogs kind of starting a small business. They go to a firehouse. This building should be condemned. It's very, very lived in looking, kind of practically haunted looking place there. I love that. I love the little mundanities that they had to mortgage poor Ray's parents' house to buy this place. And this place is used in a lot of movies. But the firehouse is using the mask. It's using
it's an iconic location. Sure,
it is. Of course, the Ecto One. We should have the Ecto One of the great movie cars. Not the greatest. Great.
No, I mean, it's no DeLorean, but I think it's still iconic.
It is, man. I remember getting a kick out of it when we drive around Universal on the Blues Brothers car, man. I love seeing it.
Ooh, that's cool.
I actually, it's funny. Earlier in the month, because it's October, obviously, I was watching Ghostbusters, and before I rewatched it for this, and I swear to God, just by happenstance, somebody had an Ecto One that drove by on the street.
Oh wow!
Like the same day, it was so trippy. Like the same day I was watching Ghostbusters, like, oh God, it's like a sign. Yeah, I think it was the newer one, but still, it was an Ecto One.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love all the mundanes. Like they're using the last their petty cash in like a meal of like so we did some takeout. That's the last of our petty cash. It's like I love how limited in the resources they are. I love all the practicalities of the business, and of course it all pays off with the Sedgwick Hotel. Man, the hotel's like probably the iconic set piece of the movie. We get to see the dream in action. It's like we have the maze. I love everything about this, man. It sounds so simple. I love the maze of the hallways. I just love this little bit, man. This little bit. And the Elmer Bernstein score is so great. Not just like everyone's going to go to the Ray Parker Jr. song. And that's fantastic. On top of the Elmer Bernstein score. The score of this movie is great. And I love how it accentuates all these parts of the movie where they go to the elevator and have this guy that says, "What are you guys supposed to be? Exterminator? Exterminator. Someone saw a cockroach up on 12. This is I'll be on that. You getting up? You going on? Because I'll get on the next one." And I love like the little twinge of music. It sounds like oh boy, something big's about to happen. Like they're I don't know. The score is really good. Anyway. Of course, at the risk of the proton packs, we acknowledge we're just wearing unlicensed nuclear accelerators on our backs.
Okay, really quick, this movie, one of the things I really appreciate about fiction, Dragon, any sort of like magical realism style fiction, I love rules, man. I'm a sucker for rules.
Mm-hmm.
And don't cross the streams is one of the iconic movie rules.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's like next to the like the rules for the Gremlins, man. It's like don't cross the streams. Oh, that's a great
And so I got to give it that. I got to give this movie the fact that it absolutely like owns the universe it lives in.
Absolutely, and I love how trigger happy they are. This is the first. I love we see the first time they're testing the proton packs, where it's like they're firing at the poor maid, like that. What is wrong with you guys? Sorry, we thought you're somebody else. Like, oh, it's just fantastic. So, of course, Slimer. Let's talk about Slimer.
Oh my god! To me, it's like, yeah, obviously awesome effects. It's kind of crazy to think about like how little screen time Slimer actually has in the movie, considering he's pretty much the mascot of the franchise.
It was crazy. He wasn't even named Slimer in the first movie.
Oh wow, that is crazy.
Had a different name. He had like basically like a working prop name. He didn't like a name. It's the Onion Ghost.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I want to say the cartoons called him Slimer because they really liked him, and he slimed.
I'm sure the cartoons. I'm sure we got to Slimer in the cartoons.
And then by the time they went to the sequels, I'm pretty sure the cartoon came out before the sequel, and then that's why the suits look a little bit more like the cartoons, and you have Slimer in there as like more of like Slimer showed up now and again, like, hey, look, Slimer's driving the bus, ain't that quaint, that sort of stuff.
Right.
But yes, Slimer. Yes, of course. There's an inside joke with Slimer. I think it's really sweet. It's kind of a joke, but I like to think it's intentional. That Slimer's kind of modeled after he's like the spirit of John Belushi.
Oh, yeah, I did hear about that. That's nice.
Because remember when you see him, he's eating a lot, he's drinking all the
Sure. Yeah, he's got all the Belushi-isms.
Yeah, which is kind of course, the first person who sees Slimer very appropriately is Dan Aykroyd. So that's
of course.
So of course we go to the ballroom. I love the ballroom. Gets this old West I love how destructive they get in the ballroom. Where it's like this poor snooty Sedgwick hotel manager here. This poor guy. It's like they're supposed to have like a party there in like 30 minutes. Like someone's like reserved the ballroom. They're just like tearing the place up. They're throwing tables around the make room, and it's my favorite thing is like when Egon basically he lays waste to the bar, and he's like I just love this straight laced guy. He's like he was very reserved character. It's like just firing his all together. The first time he's ever fired a the proton pack. And he's like, oh, nice shooting there, Tex. It's like he's just got a little into it, a little too into it there. It's just great. My favorite part, I love it when we use the trap. The trap is one of my favorite design gadgets in the movie, man. I love it when we throw a trap out, you hit the switch. Like, don't look in the trap. I looked into the trap.
Oh, yeah.
It's just great. And one of the great subtle gags, Tiki, the best gag in the movie, one of the great subtle gags in the whole movie is when they price the ghost, where basically $5,000 for the ghost. But what was great is when they lead up to that is they have no idea what to charge for catching a ghost. And if you look really carefully in the scene, you see Venkman holding the ghost, holding the trap, and someone's holding the trap, and Egon is basically is scratching his face, and he's like holding up fingers, like as to how much he should charge for all the amounts. It basically ends up being $5,000. So Venkman's looking to Egon's like, okay, it's 1,000 for this, 1,000 for that, 2,000 for that, which ends up being $5,000. Anyway.
All right.
It brings us kind of the Act 2 kind of... Basically, we kind of broke this up by the ghost, folks. So again, Act 1's kind of your library ghost and your Slimer, and then you get to kind of the Zool times 2. Mother!
Oh, God. Yeah, I do think all the possession stuff is very cool. Like I said, I love how that apartment building is literally just kind of being eaten alive by the inside by this like force. It's so tangible, Dragon. Like how it'll like materialize in the refrigerator and stuff like that, and ultimately it just kind of culminates. I love that build.
Yeah, all the terror and how they shot things there, where again, like Danish is like dragged into that blinding light with Zool there, man. It's freaky.
Sure.
Also, I just want to mention this too. I love the success montage. The montage just seeing like the ghost. Like, we had some good montage work in these movies, or like like the Ghostbusters are on the rise, and after we see the first mission with Slimer go down, great. We have like they're meeting all the celebrity cameos, and like they're meeting Larry King. You have Casey Kasem on the radio. Like the escalation of popularity, and also we check in with Dana before the whole possession thing. We're seeing like Dana's like saying, okay, they're the Ghostbusters, and I've had an encounter with them, and they're actually on the rise. More people are getting business. Well,
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of nice. So again, this whole Keymaster Gatekeeper thing. So I think Rick Moranis' finest work is when he's possessed. By the way, I think that's all the great comedy. It's like just, hi there, I'm Vince Clor. Yeah. I'm Vince Clortho, and it's like, yes, have some. Just like being offered the guts. It's a lot of great stuff there. I love like on the screen you see like he's busy with the dog X-ray on the screen. It's just it's great stuff there. And it's the idea if these two crazy kids get together in the biblical sense, it's going to basically birth Gozer into this reality. It's they literalized it, but it works. I don't know. Here's the most nostalgia I have for Ghostbusters. It's gonna be really obscure, really weird. You ready for it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So at my movie theater back in the day, before they added recliners and everything into it, back in the day when things were it was old fashioned. They had this big design where it's like this giant it's like a reel of film, and on each reel of film you had like a different scene from an iconic movie. Like you had a bit from Batman '89 with like during the museum trashing scene, or you had like a scene from Gremlins, let's say. Point being, like the scene always stared you in the face when you walked in the place was the afterglow of the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper, basically kind of like the aftermath of them having done some stuff there. It's always like Rick Moranis and Sigourney Weaver sitting up. It's like that shot. I've always remember that shot because every time I went to the movie theater as a kid, that shot was there even before I really knew what Ghostbusters was.
Right.
Right.
Nice. All right.
Of course, we had Dana Zool too. So that's what I'm talking about. Venkman, he didn't. Yeah, Venkman was kind of a decent guy in that scene. He didn't she was like
no. I mean, you're absolutely right. She is like his client first, for sure.
Yeah, and I love. That's the thing. Again, you felt the stakes there. Oh God, poor Dana. She's been possessed by Zool, and it's quite frightening.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Peck.
All right, this is the EPA guy.
Yes, the EPA guy. Yes.
Yeah, he's a fun foil. You see what I mean? Maybe this guy, like somehow if this guy could have also been the jealous guy, it all would have worked out.
Yeah, what a small world, but it would have worked out for sure. He's the EPA guy, and he's the romantic rival. What are the odds?
That's what I'm saying, though. It kind of feels like oh shit! I had a good analogy for it. Big. It kind of feels like the guy from Big. You know what I mean? The romantic rival. Yeah, it kind of has that sort of vibe for it. Except obviously he's not the romantic rival. He's just sort of antagonistic. But it feels like he should be the romantic rival. I don't know.
Yeah, the John Hurt from Big. Right.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I of course, played by Bill Atherson. Bill Atherson, the other iconic role this guy has, he was in the first two Die Hard movies. He was the nosy reporter that basically kind of accosted the kids, and basically that gave away the whole, that gave away who John McClane was. This guy. He always plays these weaselly characters. And of course, I think everybody knows him for Peck, but if they didn't know him for that, if they only had the action movie guys, I love he has a foot in both worlds there, the action side.
Sure.
But yeah, here's the thing. Here's the frustrating thing about Peck is that the EPA has a point. The EPA is technically not in the wrong if you really look at it, because this is untested. They didn't get a permit for any of this. Because it's untested. It's never been done before.
Totally just completely new territory.
It is. So in all fairness, he's checking again. Ghostbusters are getting a lot of notoriety.
I mean, just hypothetically, Dragon, how do you think this shit would fly if real Ghostbusters popped up now with this ectoplasm technology?
First of all, I think
the government would want to regulate that just a little bit.
First off, I think the ghost heads would be very excited if that were the case. Oh god, we could actually become real Ghostbusters. That's awesome.
Right.
I'm not throwing shade there. I said I'd be applauding.
No, for sure. Yeah. I hear you.
That'd be a win for those guys. Anyway, but yeah, they would have to. They'd have to regulate. They'd have to.
I'm just saying, man. It's not just like it's not something that you can just invent in your basement and just the government's just going to be cool with it.
I'll remind you. Okay, so I know it's been a while for you, and you're not really up to date or anything on it. Not that there's anything to be up to date on, but again, Danny Phantom's whole premise is that his parents are essentially Ghostbusters, essentially ghost hunters, and they built essentially a containment unit in their basement, and it killed their son, and he became a ghost. Because it blew up.
Darkest premise for a kid's show ever.
Essentially, I mean, don't get me wrong. He's fine. He's half ghost, but the fact is,
it's not necessarily fine. I wouldn't call that being fine.
I mean, he didn't I'm saying he's half ghost. It could have been a lot worse. But again, he's essentially he's not fully alive anymore, so that's not good.
All right.
My point is, point being, if people built these in their basements, as the Ghostbusters have, there could be some problems. But again, this is what I'm saying. So the EPA definitely has a very valid point here, but unfortunately, they sent the worst guy they could here. They sent Walter Peck, who has this overinflated sense of importance, where the people write off the EPA all the time. Again, this guy has such a sense of authority, I should say, that he antagonizes Venkman. He demands to see the thing. He's not just asking to see the thing. I mean, again, I love the exchange releases. Pretty pleased. Again, for a moment, it seems like things might actually go really well, but then he gets all antsy of show me the facilities now. It's like if he just had a softer tag. Of course, if he had a softer tag, we wouldn't have a movie, so we wouldn't have a third act. So we kind of necessary evil. But I guess the moral of the story is, at the end of the day, though, whatever happens, I do have to say this. Whatever happens, at the end of the day, moral of the story is, if someone warns you that something will explode if you turn it off, don't mess with it.
Yeah.
At least that's the moral of the story to me. It's always about saying look, this is gonna blow up, don't do it, and they don't believe them. That's just who would not believe that? I guess it's more like a post 9/11 world. You don't believe that sort of thing. Maybe that's the logic. I don't know. It was the 80s. We were gutsier.
All right. So Act 3, we get all the Gozer stuff.
Yeah, I mean, after the whole mass hysteria thing, they sell the mayor on things. Peck gets his. Says, "I'm gonna miss him." The famous line where remember the containment unit got shut off because of prickless here. Let's say.
Yeah.
Anyway. And of course, Winston has this big moment in the sun. It's like the everyman scene where it's like he goes, "I have seen crap that'll turn you white." I can't believe these guys. It's going to be mass hysteria. Dogs and cats living together. Anyway, yes, then we get the third act.
All right, so this is the thing from the video game I want to point out, Dragon. The bit on the stairs where they're carrying up the suits, and it's like, it's like really hard on them.
Yeah, 22 flights, essentially, yeah.
Yeah. That's a level in the video game.
Are you kidding me? You mean you have to climb this?
And it's an infamously hard level that goes on forever.
See, the good news is in the new game, you do climb the stairs, but you can move faster, though, from what I understand. So
No. Here's the thing with the Nintendo game. The angry video game nerd covered this back in the day. You move really slow. And there's a bunch of ghosts. I'm pretty sure it's if you touch one of the ghosts, you die. And you just kind of have to meticulously maneuver around the ghosts for literally 20 sets of staircases.
Oh God, that sounds awful.
I just love how they turned that that gag must have lasted maybe 30 seconds, and they turned it into the worst level of the game. Kind of reminds me how the most infamous part of the Lion King video game, which, as you know, was the source of many a childhood trauma. The most infamous part of that game is actually one little bit where you're riding on the ostriches like Simba and Nala do, and I just can't wait to be king.
Mm-hmm.
Just that one little bit, Dragon. Just that one little section caused so much trauma.
God. Well, what do you mean by con? Do you mean like in the sense of like
No, in the sense of like I got to this part with the fucking ostriches and I can't get past the part with the ostriches. Goddamn these ostriches!
Oh god!
Why do we have so many ostriches?
There are too many ostriches here. Why are there so many ostriches?
The ad said there'd only be a few.
This is more than okay. Anyway, get all serious. So let me tell you about one of my pet peeves. It's not a problem. It's always something. I always felt, why did we? There's one scene in Ghostbusters I feel legitimately could have been taken out. Like legitimately. Okay. Like, again, you can't really take out that scene with the cellist guy, where it's like, yeah, well, he has to be in the scene. But this that never bothered me. The point in this scene though does. So when we're off to sea, we're off to do the big third act face off with Goes of the Gozerian. We're off to do that. We got the mayor on board. The mayor's like, okay, what do you need? After that big Lenny, we get Lenny on their side, all that sort of stuff. By the way, a little fun fact, the mayor completely screws him over in the sequel. It's like, it kind of takes kind of a little bit of the punch out of the first one. Really? Look at it that way, where it's like, my God, like the mayor, because the mayor's such a nice guy in this scenario where he gets like, okay, here's like, Venkman kind of sells him on the whole, you would have saved all these registered voters, man. You're gonna. They help out the mayor very well, and they save the day in the movie. And they get completely screwed over for the sake of we need to have them be the underdogs again in the sequel. So it's kind of weird. Uh-huh. But anywho, my point is, so they get the mayor on the side, and they have like this army escort, and then the cops and everything. This thing always felt pointless to me. Okay, so they arrive there, and they actually blocked off all these streets in New York, which is unheard of then, by the way. I don't even know if it's still the block off like. The drive that you see in the movie, that's like blocks of New York that have been kind of like.
Yeah, that's impressive. Sure.
With like an army escort and a police escort and the whole shebang. I want to say it's real military guys. I'm not sure. I think they are, but I don't know. Point being, all of that. Then we have this little fake out, and we're like, oh no, like an earthquake is hit because of the ghost, and like, are they goners? It's like, guys, I think we could have like. This like money could have gone into other effects. I mean, I'm not saying the effects didn't look good, but it's like. Why do we need the fake out? Why can't we just have them go up the place? Either cheer it on, give them like a police escort. We don't really need the army. Why isn't the army there? They're not going to do anything. They can't do anything against the ghost. And we're just going to have like this little earthquake fake out. Like, it all feels completely pointless to me,
Mm-hmm.
Point being, after the stairs gag, we have they're facing off against Goes of the Gozerian, and we have the ultimate, for me, the best joke in the whole movie. Funny as the Twinkie it may be, I just want to give the Twinkie its due. By the way, because I was rewatching Zombieland. I love that. It occurred to me when I was rewatching Zombie on the first one because they get ready for the second one. Occurred to me the fact that when we're watching Ghostbusters in the movie, it is all related, folks. We're watching Ghostbusters in the movie. The whole movie is about the pursuit of a Twinkie, and yet the scene that we used was, like the Twinkie scene from Ghostbusters. It's quite funny.
Right.
Sorry, my point is. Gozer asks, "Are you a god?" And this is a wonderful full circle.
Oh, by the way, that whole "Are you a god" thing is like really creepy.
It is.
That delivery.
It is. I love that. It's a really great full circle callback. Where so we're facing down the Sumerian god of destruction. We're Sumerian god of destruction, and it's okay. All four of us here says, "Go get her, Ray," and it's a callback to the library where it says, "Go get her, Ray," where it's get her, that whole thing. So he goes up to her and he gives the whole spiel like, return to your original dimension of origin. She says, "Are you a god?" And then he gives this look to Venkman, and Venkman is like, "You know what to do, buddy." He gives the nod. Yeah, you know what to say. He says, "No," and then die. And then we have the best line of the whole movie. The best line. Ernie Hudson delivers the best line of the whole movie. Ray, next time if someone asks if you're a god, you say yes.
Yeah, you're right. That is a great line.
My favorite part of the whole movie.
I just love how timid Aykroyd is. He's like, no. He's like caught off guard by the question.
I love that. I think I'm not up to date on the comics at all, but the very first comic that they did was Ray had a nightmare about Gozer the Gozerian, and he basically was on a talk show about the success of the Ghostbusters, and then Gozer appeared, and he learned his lesson where Gozer goes, "Are you a god?" And he says, "Why, yes, I am." It didn't work out because she said liar, so apparently he was screwed out.
Oh God!
If you really, it's just occurring to me in the moment right now. If you really think about it, though, the Sumerian gods and demigods, they're really not that bright because apparently if Venkman said like, yes, I am the Keymaster, you just walk right on in. So if he said yes, I think it might turn out a little different.
Right.
Terrifying, but not too bright at the end of the day. So I love with the climax. I love how simple and direct the showdown is. We're on the top of the roof. We got to take care of the Gozerian. Of course, it's all just very localized. So we deal with the threat in front of us there. It's pretty simple and straightforward. You know, we don't have to do like a whole. Nowadays, movies are all about they have to go through. You have to do this to get that. There's a sky beam. There's always something. You know, it's always like a chain of events, or have like the battle, like a giant sky battle going on of some variety. Here's it's very simple. You know, we go up you walk up the stairs, and essentially across the streams. Essentially, what we do. But I love the whole like how we kind of little fun fact. Did you know Goes of the Gozerian originally was supposed to be an architect, and that architect was supposed to be
really? Huh.
Yeah, but the fact of it was like all of this stuff is very linked to the architecture of the buildings. Like all of this is centered around his building, which kind of blew me away. But here's what I completely forgot about. The storyboards look exactly like this guy, and assuming the legend is true, the original actor supposed to play Gozer the Gozerian was a male actor, and it was Paul Rubens.
Oh, interesting.
Paul Rubens supposed to be like it was Paul Rubens in a nice suit as the architect. He was going to go.
Oh God! Wow.
That's essentially what the ending was.
It would have completely changed up the dynamic.
And the only reason they didn't do that, from what I hear, is that he turned them down. So they kind of changed things. Like, okay, Goes of the Gozerian. So they probably would have went with that too. I mean, the architect makes sense. I would have bought it.
All right.
So I love that they choose the form of their destroyer. Of course, in choosing the form of their destroyer, it's like, so we don't, okay, guys, don't think of anything. Don't think of anything. We have to fight anything. And what happens?
Oh boy. Stay Puft happens, obviously.
I love the foreshadow. I love how early in the movie Dana was grocery shopping. You see like a bag of marshmallows with Mr. Stay Puft on it.
I mean, here's the thing about Stay Puft is that I really think that if I were in Dan Aykroyd's position, I would probably instantly try and do the same thing. And it would probably yield, similar horrible results. But I mean, I like how relatable it is. Like, yeah, just think of like the most unintimidating, like Dragon. Imagine if we thought of Vera Farmiga.
Oh God. See, here's the thing. I would never do that because I don't want to have to take down. I don't have to kill any form of Vera Farmiga. So I wouldn't have it in me. It'd be like you have like a pro like, I can't do it. What are you talking about? She'll wipe us all up, but I can't do it. It's Farmiga. She's breathing fire. Well, come on.
But I mean, Stay Puft is just such a great I mean, obviously, I'm not the first person by any means to say like, "Oh, it's a great design, cool image," but it is, man. It just is. It's just like an instantly iconic sort of movie monster.
Absolutely, and I love that. Basically, we shot it like gods. They shot it like Godzilla. They put him. It's a guy in a suit with like kind of miniatures around, but it looks great though. It looks. It's so. Again, it's a face that only gets changed in very few shots, but I love that it's just like this harmless-looking mascot walking down the street, but then scaled perfectly. He steps on a church, man. No one does that in Venkman's Town. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It plays off of Ray's kind of childlike nature very well, and you say, I love it. Like, Ray's gone bye-bye. He's just been, but. I love the genuine pathos in the moment of defeat of Mr. Stay Puft, where they're going to be goners, and it's like of all the things that take them out, it's going to be a giant marshmallow man.
Right.
It's so absurd, but again, I love that it's the perfect blend what Ghostbusters is going for here, where again it's comedy, but also again it's comedy, sci-fi, and there's a little bit of an adventure in there. Man, this might be the last ride. and with that. I think my other favorite moment of the movie, not exactly funny, haha moment, but it's one of the great moments in the movie is the big crossing the streams moment. It's the big, that's how you do a climax where we set up, okay, don't cross the streams, where Egon's only suggestion, like, the only way we're going to get out of this is cross the streams. Oh, you said crossing the streams was bad, Egon. No, we can't do that. And I love like there's a probability we might not die. And just Venkman in this moment is like, this moment of like a pause. You could drive a truck through. Like, oh god, we're goners. Here's this Venkman just like all positive and uplifting. It's just like, I like this plan. I'm happy to be a part of this plan. Let's do it. and just this utter, again, there's a little bit of, it's just some genuine like, okay, like, see you on the other side. Like, this might be it, guys. If we cross the streams, we could destroy the fabric of reality, but it'll be the last note we go out on. So like, see you on the other side. Nice working with you, Dr. Venkman. It's like, it's so nice. Like, it's just such a genuine friendship and everything with these guys. It's really nice,
Yeah.
Right. So we have our happy ending where we save Dana and Lewis. We we break them out of the statues. They kind of became architecture in a sense.
Yeah, again, kind of the physical tangibility of that all is pretty cool.
Yep, it's like now we know where gargoyles come from in the first place. And honestly, the other thing that's always going to stick with me with Ghostbusters, no matter what happens, the ending, when we play the theme, we play the theme awesomely at the end of this movie, man, where we see them all kind of come down. Venkman, he gets to kiss the girl, and yeah, just to give him like a little something, I guess. But I love that. At the end, you're all walking out. We're all very victorious. Janine like walks up and she hugs Egon, all that sort of stuff. I love how the score just keeps rising. Such a high of highs. You go out on the end of the movie, like Lewis is like, no, I want to go with them. They're the heroes of the movie. Let me go with them. It's like it's just kind of a feel good ending. It's a high of highs. You were playing the Ray Parker song. It's a lot of fun. It's cool.
Yeah. All right. Okay, well, final thoughts on my end, Dragon. I'm sorry if I don't have a ton to say about this thing. Like I said, I probably would be more attached to it if I grew up with it or if I saw it a bunch of times. I really get the feeling like this is one of those movies where the more you watch it, the more it just kind of becomes ingrained in you until the point where, I'm sure a bunch of people who grew up with it could probably quote it line for line. I'm not one of those people. But it is a really, really impressive movie from a technical point of view. It blends the comedy and the horror very well. The characters can be, kind of jerks to each other at times, but I guess that's what makes them likable in the end. I don't know. And it's overall a very solid movie, just not necessarily. It's not my movie, Dragon. I respect. I'm on the same page of you as like, I respect the fan base, but I am not a part of the fan base.
Yep. By the way, should we reflect on this year's lineup before we go here?
If you have the lineup in front of you.
I do have the lineup in front of me.
Okay, go ahead.
So my final thoughts for this before we do that.
Okay.
Of course, I think it's a classic through and through. It's a cool idea that we keep revisiting, for better or for worse, obviously. But in a sense, I mean, it's going to sound a little corny, but the movie, in a sense, Ghostbusters almost has become synonymous with the word ghost these days. When you think ghost, of course, you're going to think, obviously, because half of the word Ghostbusters. It's kind of comes to mind. When you think of ghost, you kind of think of this feel good movie. You're like, it was a fun movie. For some people, it's everything. For some people, it's like, I'm a little bit of the latter. I'm a little bit like, I'm not obsessed with the world of Ghostbusters, but I love the culture it's created. I love the. I love the ghost heads, that whole thing that people really take it. They've done something positive with Ghostbusters. Again, they've done a lot with 2 movies and the animated shows, and they really kind of put something positive in the world. It's kind of a reason that we keep coming back to it. And again, just Ghostbusters was just an insanely cool idea that has kind of bled into other things, and kind of bled into, when you think of like kind of ghosts in kind of a fun way, you're usually thinking of Ghostbusters. You're thinking of like all these kind of these silly shows where people are saying they're ghosts in real life and all that sort of stuff. You're thinking of the better version of that, which is Ghostbusters. So it's always on the mind in some way, shape, or form. At the very least, whether you're fully into it or not, it's a good movie. That's good enough for me. Right. So just to kind of go through our lineup to appreciate kind of some of the highs and lows and highlights of the whole Haunted Holiday Hijinks of this year, 2019. To go through the list here. Okay, so Haunted Mansion. We start off Haunted Mansion, the 2003 movie, Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, that was like I found it surprisingly watchable, Dragon. I feel like you had a worse time with that than I did. I thought it was fun for what it was. There were a ton of ride references. I feel like it's actually more accurate to the ride than Pirates of the Caribbean is, so I'll give that a plus.
Yeah. Let's see. Then we did Hey Arnold, the Ghost Bride episode.
Yeah, I mean, not the best Hey Arnold episode, but it certainly had its spooky charm to it.
Ends with the potential murder of Curly, so you always have one.
Right.
Let's see. The Magic School Bus.
Oh man, that was something else. That was a fun podcast.
Let's see. Of course, I remember you very, very tangenty with all your Ralphie trauma.
Of course.
Let's see. I believe then we hit the Scooby Doo movie.
That was probably the weak point of the season.
Yeah.
I hate to say it because I was looking forward to like revisiting it and being like, "Oh man, this movie's so meta and cool and James Gunn." But Dragon, the real heartbreaking thing about that is that I found that all the negative stuff around that movie is probably stuff that James Gunn put in there. That's the really ironic, like, unfortunate thing about revisiting the movie.
Unfortunately, but again, like James Gunn's basically making the Robot Chicken version of Scooby-Doo, and that's what his movie would have been, and that would have been a good thing on its offshoot, but not something like the Scooby-Doo in live action for the first time. Like, that's not exactly what you want the first time you see that happen, so... Well, fun fact, of course, I was sitting with it under my hat while we were doing that. But of course, I met Matthew Lillard in this month. So
sure,
Monster Con. So it was like, oh boy, it's anyway. So let's see. So then there was Curb's Cowardly Dog. The King Ramses episode. Ramses.
Oh man, that was a lot of fun. Yeah. I mean, it's about time we got to that one.
Yep. Okay, let's see. Keen and Kel, Two Heads Are Better Than None.
Yes, that was a lot of fun too. Very nostalgic. I would say the one thing we had about that is that the actual two heads are better than none thing kind of comes into play only in the third act, and it's kind of out of nowhere by that point.
It's basically just like another sighting of Keen and Kel, and kind of like, yeah, it's fun to revisit the old Keen and Kel well, but it was kind of like two movies when it needed to be one. Let's see. Matzah's in my pocket.
Matzah's in my pocket. Oh, that was such an interesting piece of media, man. It really was. I had a good time with that one.
Then we had like the very narratively diverse BoJack for, of course, BoJack season 6, at least the first part of season 6 dropped. So we wanted to be kind of acknowledge that with BoJack season 5, episode 8.
I'm legally right to murder, Diane.
Wrong season, but yes.
Oh, that, man, I respect the heck out of that episode so much, man. The way it plays with time and, tells that coherent storyline from beginning of the night to end of the night through 3 different time periods or 4 different time periods. I think.
Four.
Yeah, just so narratively impressive. It's like a tightrope.
Yep. Oh no, I should have just said trade. Why did I give you the option to trick? Oh, Toddy. All right, so then we
Don't turn around.
So we have Jimmy Neutron, Sleepless in Retroville.
You know what? I'll give that one a pass. I'm not usually a Jimmy Neutron guy, but I found nothing to get offended by for that episode. I thought it was fun.
Had floating scary pizzas, man. That's cool. All right, let's see. Halloween Town.
Oh God. I'll admit, Dragon, I did not rewatch it for this movie or for this podcast, but I don't like Halloween Town. I don't know. Debbie Reynolds is great. Like, she's easily the reason to watch it, but man, that movie is not aged well.
I still think we should check out the sequel. I think 2 is probably the best. I think it was the best
Calabar's Revenge, man.
Seriously, 2 might be worth. I'm not gonna say we gotta do 2. I'm just saying it might be worth doing if we take another stab at it or something. I don't know. Then we have Buzz Lightyear of Star Command with Haunted Moon.
That was pretty good too. Pretty good. Had a good sense of suspense and atmosphere to it.
Yeah, I know it's kind of breaks down the ghost thing by the latter half of things, but it was a good episode, man. Then we have Adam Costello meet the Invisible Man.
Probably my favorite thing of the season, honestly.
Oh yeah, and then we have Ghostbusters,
which we just talked about.
Yes, we did, and right. That's the way it goes, folks. So yeah, another successful year of Haunted Holiday Hijinks. All right.
We still need to talk about the original Frankenstein, man. It's a shame that we haven't by now.
True.
Dying to get to that one. All right, folks, that's the end of this year's spooky selections, and our spirits grow weary. But they'll be stronger than ever next year as we engage in even more haunted holiday hijinks.
Bustin' makes me feel good.